Timothy, chapter 2, verse 11. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she shall be saved through childbearing, if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. Gross. Real gross. Hey, if you think that this is the good book, you should give us a call, because the show's starting right now. Welcome to Talk Heathen. Today is May 28th in the year of our Lord 2023. I'm your host, Forrest Valkai, and I'm joined today for the very first time by Sofia. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing all right. I'm nervous and excited to be here. Yeah.
It's an exciting show. It's a great time for everybody. Hey, really quick, I got to let you guys know that Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of church and government. Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have open lines. You can get your calls in using the number at the bottom of the screen right now, or from your computer at tiny.cc/call-th. Call TH. And with that, we already have callers on the line, but I would love to give Sofia a chance. Just, introduce yourself briefly. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Is that okay?
Yeah. I am Sofia Spina, and I am somewhat of a baby atheist in some ways. I'm newer to this whole thing, but I'm really excited to be here. I love learning. I love logic, and I am sort of a fangirl of Forrest Valkai. Don't tell him. But yeah, so it's nerve-wracking and exciting, and I'm so excited to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. And I also want to thank very quickly, we are live in studio today, and I'm super stoked about that. I rarely get to be all the way down here in Austin, but because I'm here, I want to take a time to shout out the real cool people here, and that's the audience, which are right out there. Look at them. Aren't they wonderful? I like that one the most. That one over there is my favorite. You know the one. If you're ever in the Austin area and you want to come see us, we are live in studio, I believe, the last Sunday of every month. So come see us here. It's a pretty cool place to be. It's a small little area, so parking is just kind of wherever you can find a legal spot, hopefully. But the Free Thought Library is an awesome resource for anybody in the Austin area who wants to learn a little bit more about atheism, free thinking, whatever, or wants to watch one of our ridiculous shows. So come on down and have some fun with us. And with that, if it's so cool with you, I'm going to jump right into calls, yeah?
Yeah. Do we do the question of the week real quick first?
Oh, yeah, we do have a job to do as well. I was going to...
Just moving right on in.
This is why they don't have me down. So I don't forget about the question of the week. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to go through it really quick? Because oh, man. Yeah, you do that.
Okay.
You do the thing
okay.
that I'm bad at.
All right. So before we get started, we want to give you the results of last week's Talk Heathen to Me, which is just... the sexiest name I can think of. Last week, we asked you, if God favors humans, why are they so blank? And so here are the top 3 responses. Number 3 is from Mark Allen, and it says, if God favors humans, why are they so illogical most of the time? Of course, maybe God does exist and just realizes that if we had better logic and critical thinking skills, none of us would believe. So that's pretty great. Number 2 is from Mike B. Talk Heathen to me. If God is on humanity's side, why did he make humans so hard to convince of being wrong? I'm never wrong, so I don't really relate to this question, but, fair enough. Number 1 is from X Million. If God favors humans, why are they so mostly damned to hell?
That's such a good one. That's one that I always like to ask, is people, they say that, God knows everything already. God is predetermined. So then certain humans were made to go to hell. That's their job, because he already knows what's going to happen. He knows everything, right? Yep. So he knows they're not going to be convinced. He knows they're going to go to hell, but he made them anyway.
It was once explained to me by a Calvinist classmate of mine that, you could just spend your time being really grateful that God didn't condemn you to hell.
Oh, yeah, no,
The answers all the questions.
Screw those people. It's always the way to live.
Always. All right. Do you want to read the prompt for next week?
Sure, yeah. The prompt for next week is, what did the caller say to make secular rarity look like this? And to your, oh my God. I didn't realize there'd be a thing. I thought we were just going to make fun of him for how he is all the time. I didn't know.
You made a special face.
Right?
A special face for us.
Enter your answer below the video in the comments. Next week, we'll review our favorite top 3 answers. But let me ask you this. What do you think that the caller said to make secularity look like that?
You don't get it, secularity. They were baby dinosaurs on the ark, so it works.
That is, yeah, no, that would make me make the same face. That's great. So now we do the show. I'm a professional, and I forgot about the whole intro sequence.
Hey, it's making me feel better that it's my first time. I'm like, all right.
No.
He doesn't know what he's doing. It's
I'm
fine.
bad every time. So, like, if you're great on the first time, you're already blowing me out of the water. Okay, so now we will do the things that I'm here to do, and that is starting with Charles. From Pennsylvania, any and all pronouns. I asked God to change my life, and he did. Charles, you're on Talk Heathen. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing real good. I hope you are too.
I've never had a bad day in my life.
Good. Yeah, let me first say that I've met a few atheists, and I think they're really smart people, really cordial, nice people. You know, some aren't, but for the most part, atheists, they seem pretty smart and just easy to get along with. And I don't think any of you are going to be thrown into hell or anything like that. I think, you know, God wants different people in this world to, so he's not bored, because if everybody was the same, everybody was pretty much the same. It would be kind of boring, I guess.
Well, I appreciate that. I can say the same thing for I've met a lot of Christians that are very cool people. I used to work for a Catholic who had a PhD in atomic and molecular physics, and he was a charming dude. So it's very, very kind of you to start the call that way, Charles. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, to be blunt, I randomly found a photograph of my grandfather on eBay about 6 years ago when I was sitting around bored I said, I'm going to look at old cars on eBay to pass the time. I'm 64 years old. And my grandfather was a police officer in Monessen, Pennsylvania, back in the 1920s and 30s. Anyway, Grandpa died when I was a 4-month-old baby. And I could get to it later how I knew the picture to recognize it. But I was sitting in a water truck at a gas well in West Virginia about 6 years ago, and we're sitting in line bored. I said, I'll be here a while. I'm going to look at old cars on eBay to pass the time. And I like old 64 Fairlane sports coupes. So I look at that on eBay sometimes, and I put that on eBay, Fairlane. And the very first one on the list was a 1958. I really don't like them that much, but I was bored. I clicked it on, reading about a nice old car. I said, I wonder what else that guy's got for sale. I hit the seller's other item list, and he had 26 items there, and one said 4 old police pictures for $10. And I like them old police pictures because of my grandfather. I think about him a lot, and I'm like into them. I don't know, I guess, but so I clicked that on 4 old police pictures for $10 on eBay, and one of the pictures was my grandfather in 1934. And I called the guy up in Kentucky, Greenup, Kentucky. His name's Steve. And I asked, how'd you get a picture of my grandfather down there like that? He said he's a retired police officer down there. He bought that about 10 years ago on eBay, and he's 74 years old. And he's just reselling some things that he had laying around or what. He said he actually had 2 original copies of my grandfather. It's a cool picture. He's on a 1934 Harley Davidson at the dealership in his uniform. It's a super cool picture.
Yeah.
And he had 2 of them. He sold me the other one. I mailed him some money. And the reason I knew that picture was about 12 years ago, I would go visit my mother and dad's grave in Belle Vernon, PA. And I was feeling bad about my life. I was 52 years old, and my life was really not good. And I was having like some issues, and I'd go there to feel better about my life, just contemplate things. And so I seen Grandpa's headstone there, and I thought, I never had no grandparents. My mom and dad were older when they had me. So I really needed my grandpa. I just looked at his headstone. I said, man, I wish I had grandpa. I started thinking about being a 4-month-old baby in his arms when he had pancreas cancer, and he died. And I never knew much about him, and it caught my mind, I guess.
So Charles, I just want to ask, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you short, but we've got a few other calls in the line. I just want to know, like, how does this like relate back to God and changing your life? Like where does this go?
Well, my heart drew really heavy, and I believed in God. I never went to church or nothing. And I cried out to God to change my life, and He sure did. I'm a really good person now, no issues, no problems. And
So let's dig into that then. How did God change your life to make you a good person?
Well, I had issues with drugs and just immorality, I guess, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of affected my life where I was alone. And I really just, my family was dead. And it affected my heart like a little bit. And it's like almost like God drew me in.
So would it be fair to say you were struggling with some things that you knew weren't the way you wanted to live? You weren't weren't living the direction you wanted to live, and you weren't living the line of life you wanted to live. And so you found something that gave you social structure and a sense of community, and that helped you with the support to get your life on the track that you wanted in the first place. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Yes, yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Cool.
I think I might throw in there, too. It sounds like you had a mindset shift. You know, you had a time when you knew you wanted things to change, and you found a way that enabled you to make that shift within yourself. And I don't think most atheists want to take anything away from anybody if that's something that you experience and find valuable. I'm curious, are you calling in because you think that's sort of a more generalizable thing, that if people find God, this happens? Or is it just to share that that's what happened for you?
Well, personally, I started reading about religious stuff, and I kind of believe that I was chosen, I dare to say, because I had a lot of really miraculous things happen. You don't have time to hear it, but I mean, these are really bona fide.
What's the best one? Like, what's the most convincing miracle? Because you're right, we don't have time for all of them, but like, as an example, what's like the coolest miracle that you experienced?
Well, I met a lady in Bible study, and I was telling her my story, and she said, told me what happened to her. Her dad's name was David Turney, and he died in 2016. She said 2 sisters, they cried for 6 months over that, and they said one day, let's go to the mountains in Maryland. In Deep Creek, Maryland, and spend a day together, put this behind us. So she did, and they met a couple up there that like to go bowling. They did too, and they went to the bowling alley in Oakland, Maryland. And coming home, she told her sister they had a good time there. The sister Googled the bowling alley, and the bowling alley was located on David Turney Street in Oakland, Maryland. And the lady's name is Haley. She lives in Belle Vernon, PA. That's her dad's name, David Turney.
Right.
He went up there, and they just led to the bowling alley located on David Turney Street in Oakland, Maryland. And she said, there can't be that many David Turneys. So I said, lady, I've never heard that name before. And I said, I know through my miracles that you were led up there. And she's a super nice lady. She works at the college in the admissions department, and a really nice 37-year-old Bible study teacher. And she had no idea that bowling, she liked to bowl, you know.
Right. So, like, but that's the thing. Like, my dad's name was Heinz, and I miss him terribly. He died about a decade ago. I don't get like the feeling that I'm experiencing a sign every time I pick up a bottle of Heinz ketchup. You know, it's just that's a name. And I just Googled just for fun. I just looked up David Turney on Google, and I've got here one of these find a person websites that has 189 matches. And so like, yeah, that you're right. That is a coincidence. Like, wow, there's a street with this guy's name. That's pretty cool. But humans have this really bad habit of seeking patterns and finding meaning in things that are relatively kind of meaningless, maybe interesting and coincidental, but still not really meaningful. There's epiphania and pareidolia, patternicity, these phenomena that we experience where we see shapes in clouds and in stars and meaning from meaningless data.
Or like sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
But when I first learned that San Luis Obispo was a place and not just a funny sequence of sounds, I started hearing about it everywhere to the point when I actually started thinking, is there something in San Luis Obispo that I'm supposed to be doing here?
Right.
I think that these things, we notice them. And I think it's totally okay to be like, I'm grieving. Hey, this reminds me of this is the same name. What an interesting coincidence. And again, give that meaning if you want to. But I look at it and I just think that doesn't really mean anything to me or to perhaps other unbelievers. Like, I'm glad that there were healing experiences. I don't see them as evidence of miracles, though, when they can pretty easily happen in completely mundane ways, too.
Does that make sense, Charles, what we're saying?
Yeah, I can respect your thoughts on it, but I mean, this happened to me several times. I mean, it's really far-fetched coincidences that were really, and I know that I prayed. I don't know if you call it pray. I kneeled down in my bed and I talked to God about things, and I've had so many things, just unique things happen that I met a lady that my sister saved her life from drowning 40 years ago. Not long after I prayed about my little sister, she died about 12 years ago. And I prayed about her. I need to know she's okay. And I seen my buddy the next day at the Dollar General store, and he told me that he woke up at 5 a.m. and he thought about my sister Tracy.
Right.
He said that he heard a voice that remember when she saved that girl at Ohio Powell State Park. He said that was 40 years ago. I said, man, I prayed about her last night, and you woke up. And I said, you think that was God? He said he really did.
So,
and I went up to Ohio Powell State Park and prayed a little bit. And a month later, I met that same lady that she randomly met her.
Yeah.
That she saved her life in church.
So Charles, let me ask you just two brief questions, and you know, because we got to move on to the next call, but like I just want to ask you two things. Number one, how many times have you prayed and then not gotten a miraculous result like this?
Usually I just pray about money. I don't get that, or to be able to have my stories known, like publicly. No, that doesn't happen. I don't think God has it in his time.
So you pray for some things and they don't happen, and you pray for other things that are more related to, like, you know, community, because you live around people, right? You have families, you have friends, you have extended friends, you know, there's millions of people that are connected to you one way or another. That kind of thing, we get answers to prayer. But when it comes to like winning the lottery or like, you know, getting your name out there or whatever like that, these very rare things, prayers don't work very well on that. Do you think maybe there's a bit of confirmation bias here where you're seeing things that are maybe a little bit coincidental, but coincidences happen all the time, and you're looking for meaning in that? Meanwhile, all the things that you're not getting from prayer, you're not attributing that to saying, okay, so prayer doesn't work in this way. It's just saying, okay, well, God didn't want to do it, but he did do these other things that have an explanation. Like, does that not kind of sit weird with you?
Yeah, like to say things that he really doesn't need anyway, money or whatever, but things from the heart that really grabs my heart. When I talk to God, I said, this is like urgent a little bit. I kind of talk to him like, yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the next day or two, something really crazy happened. You know, I took that picture of my grandfather to Staples about 2 years ago. I asked that lady, can you blow this up, make me a couple copies? Her name's Samantha, the photo manager. She said, yeah. She looked at it. She said, that's weird. I said, what is it? She said she went to visit her sister out in Ohio last Christmas, and her sister's boyfriend had that same picture hanging on their wall in their bathroom, and they don't know who that is. I said, that's my grandpap. And I wasn't even surprised that much over it, because I said, I have so many crazy things happen that, the photo manager, Samantha at the Staples, she looked at that picture of my grandpa, and she said went to visit her sister out in Ohio last Christmas, and her sister's boyfriend had that same exact picture hanging on the wall in her bathroom.
I mean,
that's the coincidence. Coincidence, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you again. And it is really interesting as a story. It reminds me, my grandfather lived in Eastern Oregon for 50 years, and he's everywhere. And my great-grandparents are everywhere. And it's really cool to be able to go and find pictures of them or something named after them. I don't think it's necessarily evidence of God, which might offend my grandfather. He was a preacher. But it makes me feel good. And I love those stories. I don't think it's really that shocking, though, in an area with not that many people necessarily, or with the same families who've lived around for quite a while, that we would see pictures of them. I also love old pictures. It's wonderful stories to share. I still kind of
close out. Maybe you're probably about done with me here, but if you look on my TikTok channel, it's called Truth Dog 4, and I made a video, and it has a picture of my grandfather in it, and a model that I found in the Goodwill store the very next day after I framed that picture. There was a model of a 1934 Harley Davidson with a sidecar, same thing Grandpap had, but it was in the Goodwill store the very next day. And I actually went in the Goodwill the day I got the frame, nothing was in there, and I had the next day off. I went back in the Goodwill. There was a model of a 1934 Harley with a sidecar. But look at my Truth Dog 4.
I'm not going to do that. But hey, Charles, I just really quickly, the last thing that I want to ask you, and this is where really getting to the meat of it, because like we can sit here all day and talk about like, well, this weird thing happened to me and that was God. And then I'll tell you some weird shit that happened to me and I don't believe it was God. You know what I mean? We can do that for a while. I guess the biggest thing that stuck out to me that you said, and then we'll be done after this, is that you said that, you know, the reason why prayer doesn't work for money and the reason why prayer doesn't work for fame, but it does work when it's thing with your family, is because these are things that are really weighing on your heart and that it really matters to you, and you ask God about those types of things. And like, I guess my question is, why then isn't prayer like 100% reliable when, like, say, for example, someone has a child with cancer that's dying in the hospital and they pray about it? Why isn't God answering all of those prayers? Because surely those weigh on people's hearts and they're selfless prayers. They don't involve money or fame. Like, why aren't those prayers working, but your prayer to, like, see somebody who had a memory of your sister from a while ago, that's what God's interested in? Why is that the case?
Yeah, I've been told I have a prophetic gift, and I did pray about little children having cancer, laying there in the hospital bed dying, and I prayed about that, and God gave me the thought that he took their soul to heaven already. That little baby laying there, dying child, actually has an angel in their body, and they know how to mimic that little kid, saying, "Mommy, mommy, I love you," and all that.
So it's just giving that parent a tremendous amount of grief and trauma. That's the baby isn't hurting. It's just the parents that need to experience a tremendous amount of grief and pain and suffering. That's the goal.
They experience a great amount of joy whenever they reach heaven and they see their little baby there.
I don't know that.
I got you. So if I beat the crap out of somebody now, it's okay because they're going to feel happy later when they're not being beaten anymore. Yeah.
I would also point out that there are quite a few people who lose their faith in God because they go through something like that with a child. So the idea that you have an imitation angel, it actually sounds like an Irish fairy. Like, this is starting to sound very mythical.
Right.
Torturing these parents by making them watch their child go through something horrifying that they can't understand. And then that parent loses their faith and they never see that baby in heaven. So all that was accomplished is torment. That's horrifying.
Yeah, maybe they were tested. I really don't know why he does things. I know he's real. I absolutely know because of things that happened, many things in my life that are just.
Well, that's the thing, Charles, is that, like, I don't know why Ted Bundy did the things that he did either, but I'm not going to say that there might have been some positive outcome to it and that maybe he was a good guy. It's just, I think we're doing a lot of the legwork for this God by trying to say, okay, well, when he does good things, that's because he's good, and when he does horrible things, that's because he's mysterious. Like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way for anybody else. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next call, but I really appreciate you calling in and being so polite and so cordial with us. I encourage you to call back in another time if you want to have another conversation with us, okay?
I may do that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Charles. Take care. Have a good day. What a genuinely nice guy.
I know. It seems like such a sweetie.
So before we move on to the next call, we have merch, y'all. And this month is special. We're bringing back the top 3 designs as rated by the fans for all the month of May only. So if you missed out on getting these before, this is your last chance to get them. This is the end of May. So they're only around to the end of the month. You can get 10% off your entire purchase by using the code FAVORITES at checkout. You can go to tiny.cc/merchaca and you can get them all right now. Also, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Only if you like this video and would like to see more of it, then do those things. It really does help a lot. If you enable notifications, you'll see more of us. If you comment below and you can get on, like, our favorite comments of next week, all those things help the channel, and they help you as well because they kind of train your algorithm to see more of our beautiful faces. Don't you want that? And also, you can become a channel member. This is another thing you can do if you want to support us. You can click the join button down below. You'll get custom chat emotes. If you're in the chat right now, please throw some of those emotes up there. Let everybody know what they're missing out on if they're not a channel member yet. It'll also help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen and the atheist community of Austin as a whole. So if you like what we do and you want to support us, those are all ways to do it. And then finally, you can send in a super chat with a question or a comment. This is the most non-committal way to do this. So we've already got some super chats right now here. Let me see if we can open them up. And they said they'd be in this message, and I don't see them. But we'll keep an eye open for them.
You have to take it on faith maybe a little bit. There are, in fact, super chats.
Oh, here we go. We've got $10 already from Greg Murkowski for $10 here. Thanks for the show. Forrest is fantastic. Thank you very much. And welcome, Sofia. Yay! Forrest, I heard that crabs evolved on Earth more than once. If that's true, does that mean that they're the best life form? Is God a crab?
Yes! Let's just say yes.
Yeah. So there's a process. It's a thing called carcinization, where we see crabs evolving over and over. And oftentimes this gets blown up in like pop culture. People like to say the crab is like the ultimate final form of all evolution. What they're missing out on that is that crabs evolve repeatedly in marine crustaceans specifically. There's no squids becoming crabs, right? There's no humans becoming crabs. But like crabs, or like the crab body type does evolve over and over and over and over. And also there are some things that have evolved away from that body type. It's all just, fitting in the best niche, and crabs are real good at fitting into obscure niches. And then we've got George Orr sending in $5 with no message from George, but thank you anyway for the $5. We're going to use all of those $5 to support this show, and I appreciate you sending that in. With that, the lines are filling up like crazy. I really want to take this guy here. We've got Dre from right here in Texas, says that atheists told him that God is just a guess rather than a scientific theory. I believe we can help clear up that confusion. Dre, you're on Talk Heathen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
I'm awesome, man.
Oh, thank you.
So expand a little bit on what you're saying. Like, what exactly is like the point of contention here?
So when I was having a discussion with the atheists, I believe it was in the comment section of one of the shorts on this channel.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, I really wonder, and we understand that there's concepts that theory is the agreement that there's not going to be a concrete resolution to some things, right?
No. Not really, no.
It's not. What is theory?
So in common language, like when you and I are just speaking like people, theory does mean like a guess or something that we're not able to test. Like I have a theory about where my sock went in the dryer. I have a theory about why my car won't start, whatever like that. But in science, a theory is actually the highest level to which an idea can be elevated. So a theory is a functional explanation for observed natural phenomena that's backed by all the best evidence that we have. It's something that's been tested and checked and critiqued and rigorously like gone over a million different times. It's got to be predictive. We can use this theory to make predictions on what's going to happen in the world and in nature. It's also got to have repeated experimentation from several different fields, several different lines of evidence, all pointing to it. So a great example of a theory is gravity. Gravity's a theory. Your body being made of cells, that's a theory. Germs making you sick, that's a theory. The shape of the planet is a theory. Relativity is a theory. We can go on and on and on with these things. My favorite theory is evolution. It's what I study for a living. And so this doesn't mean a guess. It means actually something that is like the best explanation we have, backed by all the best evidence we have. If you think that the crust of the earth is broken up into tectonic plates that move around and change the shape of the surface of the earth, that's called plate tectonic theory.
That's my favorite
and
theory.
That's backed by a lot of evidence, and it's not just a guess. And so, like, when you say, we're using the word theory to mean something that's kind of unresolved or something we're not really sure about, no. In common language, sure. But in science, when we're talking about things that are real, no. You can pretty much usually replace the word theory with something that's true. And also, just because inevitably we will get comments about this, theories and laws are completely different things. The theories don't become laws. Laws explain what's happening. Theories tell you why it's happening. So, like, for example, the law of gravity is F sub g equals negative g times m1, m2 divided by r squared. That's the force of gravity is equal to a set gravitational constant, which was derived by Newton a long time ago, multiplied by the mass of the two objects being experiencing gravitational attraction, multiplied together, divided by the distance between those two objects squared. I can plug any numbers into that and come up with an answer. I can figure out the gravity between the Earth and the Moon, the gravity between the Milky Way and Andromeda, the gravity between Sofia and I at this moment. I can calculate the gravitational force between any two objects by just plugging in numbers. The theory of gravity digs into general relativity, the bending of space-time to pull massive objects. So, like, these are different things, and they all matter. And so anyway, I say that not to be pedantic, but just because I know for sure we're going to have people in the comments like, no, if a theory was true, it becomes a law. That's not how that works. So yeah, that's the long and short of it, man. That's why I'm sure this person told you that God is not a scientific theory, because for God to be a theory, we'd have to have evidence, and we don't have that.
Okay, so basically, That was an extraordinary explanation. I think that's
Thank you.
sufficient for me, really.
I appreciate that. Sorry to just dump on you like this. It's something we encounter quite a bit.
No. Wow, that was a very extraordinary explanation. So, I'm from the side of somebody that is a theist. Like, what would you consider theology, the study of God? What would you consider that from an intellectual standpoint? If it's because I wouldn't consider anything that's studied intellectually a guest, because there's so many schools schools that study theology very deeply.
Yeah, I went to one.
I wouldn't consider it a guest, though. That sounds a little bit condescending. Do you get what I'm saying?
I totally understand. You go first, yeah.
Totally. Can I, when I was studying theology, I went to a Christian university. I loved theology. I loved doing biblical exegesis, any of that, like historical contextual criticism. Theology is not necessarily, I would say, the study of God. It's the study of how we speak about God, about religious texts. I remember writing this 8-page paper offhand about 3 verses in Isaiah once. You're studying theology, you're getting into the nitty-gritty of who actually wrote this, what did it mean at the time, what did people take it to mean, and how has that evolved over time. It's not a guess, because we're not actually talking about God most of the time. You are talking about what you do have evidence for, which is how the culture's around, the culture, the authorship, things like that. So it would be condescending to say theologians are just guessing out in the wild. Some probably do, let's be real. But there are some that are, incredibly rigorous in their research and are really thoughtful and don't make claims that are wild and don't have any backing. But most of the time, it's not really about God, it's about history.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. I'm glad you brought that up, because I have some friends who are theologists, or I suppose you say theologian.
Theologian is usually, yeah.
But I have some friends who study theology, and that's exactly right. They're studying the history of belief, the history of the language surrounding belief, the history of the interpretations and translations of religious texts. They're basically anthropologists in this way. They're studying the history of this culture and this phenomenon that we call religion. I can totally understand how you would say that, calling God a guess or whatever like that would be, a little bit condescending. And it kind of is. You're right. But I would argue that theology can be theory-based, and theology can have facts behind it, and theology can be a scientific endeavor. But when we're talking about the actual belief in God, we're not talking about theology. We're talking about something very different. We're talking about personal belief. We're talking about religion. And so religion and theology are very much not the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely, and that was a very sufficient answer for me as well. So, and then I just round off by what I'm saying was saying that I understand, I watch this program a lot because I know when I'm listening to actual objective intellectual people speak.
Sometimes.
So me as a theist, I understand that my theism is faith-based. It's not necessarily scientific-based. It's not necessarily evidence. It's faith-based. Faith is the belief in things unseen.
Yeah.
So I really can't have evidence for my faith besides me just believing this thing very deeply.
Yeah, it would go against what the Bible tells you to do if you had evidence for it, because the Bible says you're supposed to believe like a child and not seek out evidence. So I get that.
Yeah. So basically, I feel like sometimes when not speaking on you guys, not to speak on anyone necessarily on the channel, but I feel like sometimes when I speak to atheists, it's like they come from automatic, since I do not believe in God, I am therefore better than you.
No, I totally get that, man.
They believe.
May I share just sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just for a long time, I didn't say I was an atheist because I just didn't want to be like those dicks. I was very religious in my past, and I remember sitting at a dinner table after a sleepover with my friend's atheist parents, and they were just grilling me over what they, all of the things that they had issues with religion about, some of which were valid, some of which I even look at now, and I'm like, that was actually just kind of a bizarre argument. But it sucked so bad. And I fully get it. I think there's also an era of atheism, the Bill Maher, where people like that were really at the fore, where being snarky and horrible was kind of how you got some, I don't know, atheist straight cred, I guess. So I would say, I think that's changing a little bit. I think that it's becoming more normal to be nice as an atheist. But I would say, like, I both affirm and validate that, and I want more atheists to hear, like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make you better. It means that you thought about something and decided what you believed based upon it, but you're not like a superior human because of that, just like someone who's a believer is not a superior human because of what they believe either.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing is, like, atheism is one single position on one single question. Mm-hmm. Do you believe there's a God? And we say no. And in that, you have a tremendous diversity of people. You have, Republicans and Democrats. You have capitalists and communists. You have all sorts of different people from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of beliefs. The one thing you can say about us is that as atheists, we don't believe there's a God. And so, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a lot of dicks out there that are going to be jerks about it. I've interacted with some of them before. They're a lot of times when someone is like a freshly minted atheist, when they're just starting to deconstruct their religion, they're pissed because they feel like they've been lied to their whole lives, and they want to go out there and rattle the walls and shake everybody by their shoulders and be like, this is all bullshit. And like, you get people who are pretty insufferable sometimes. There's a joke that I heard from some religious friends a long time ago that, how can you tell that somebody's an atheist? Just wait, they'll tell you. And like, there's this kind of thing that, like, it's somewhat of a trope. So yeah, you're gonna experience that, man. I'm sorry, it sucks. It's the same. I could tell you about horrible experiences I've had with religious people who think they're better than me. We had a guy, I think it was the last time I was on AXP, who started the conversation by saying, I just want to let you guys know, if you don't believe in God, your life is meaningless. And that's how he started the conversation. So, like, that's just how people are. But I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and to listen to us and like call in and ask. These are great questions you're asking right now. That really matters. And as condescending as I know this will sound to you, I really hope that this helps along the line. Maybe you'll question some of the things you believe in and ask, like, I know you just said, I know that my positions are faith-based. Maybe ask yourself, would you use that same kind of thinking for anything else ever? And if not, why? And maybe that'll be a thing. Maybe you'll call in someday with some questions about, like, okay, maybe I wasn't believing the right things. Maybe we can pick it apart a little bit. Have some fun, just like chipping away at your faith a little bit.
I'm willing to do that. I'm very willing to do that.
Well, thank you, Dre. I really appreciate you calling in. You've been awesome. We're going to move on to the next call, but please call back in anytime you want to ask about anything.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Hey, take care, Dre. Have an awesome day.
Everyone's been so nice.
I'm crazy.
Just come at me, guys. Come on.
Right.
Anything.
And it may
so
change
sweet.
right now because we got a bunch of other callers. But yeah, no, this has been a phenomenal day. Phenomenal. Great conversation.
These are wonderful.
That's why I like Talk Heathen. Talk Heathen is usually a lot more chill. Hey, you can support us on Patreon. Did you know that? If you wanted to give us money and achieve like special benefits and perks, you can go to tiny.cc/PatreonTH. And we also have a new channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. You can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. You can also become part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page. You can go there at tiny.cc/FBTHG. Oh my God, so many letters. And also, in case you didn't know, Talk Heathen has a TikTok channel. I didn't even know that. And we'll be going live there before the shows on Sunday. So go subscribe. You should say follow on TikTok. And join the pre-show on the Talk Heathen TikTok. So you'll follow us over there as well and get even more Talk Heathen content. Because I know that you're all at home just itching every time this show isn't on. You just need more content. Follow us on TikTok as well. We've got a ton of callers here. Do you have any in particular that you were looking at? Because I found a couple that I liked.
I think just give me whatever.
Okay,
I'm happy. I'm pretty easy.
I'm going to go for Tommy. Tommy's in Oregon, no pronouns given. He wants to talk about the historical context of the infallibility of the Bible. Tommy, you're on Talk Heathen. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm
Doing
freaking
pretty
awesome,
well. I'm
man.
excited to talk to an Oregonian from Oregon.
Yeah. So I just quick background. I'm currently in school. I'm studying psychology, and religious studies, and in my free time, I like to just study theology and specifically Christianity. So I saw the prompt in the comments for the infallibility of the Bible.
Okay.
So, I guess where I want to start is, I think that that kind of that conversation, I think a lot of people forget really the 2,000 years, but especially the last 1,000 years of history that has molded American Christianity into what it is, right? So up until the Protestant Reformation, the authority in the faith was not the Bible. It was the papal authority, because no one could read.
That does make it hard.
The Bible.
Yeah. They also burned people at the
And,
stake for owning a Bible in the language that they could read for a while. Yeah.
And there wasn't really a printing
Right,
press.
and not many people could read in general. So after Luther did his, big public scene, and we got the split, there was kind of now a hole for Protestants in their faith, because they were like, well, we don't have the authority of the Pope anymore, or of the church. So the Luther kind of bunkered down on this idea of, well, that's because the Scripture is the authority. We're not going to listen to man. We're going to listen to God, and the best way we can do that is through the Bible. And throughout the next, up till the 21st century, and as we got all these new branches of Protestantism, Calvin with the Reformed theology, and all the way to, Latter-day Saints, we got to this point where the Bible became basically like the Quran. Like it might as well have fallen out of the sky. And I think especially nowadays with the 20th century, good examples like the Scopes Monkey trial, where fundamentalists had to really start to kind of make a choice. And I think people started going to the extremes, and I think that's why we now have this issue of kind of this infallibility part of American Christianity, which unfortunately I think.
So to be clear, you do not think that the Bible is infallible?
No.
Okay.
So what is are you sort of just giving a summary, or do you have a point of view on this?
So, for me, with my beliefs, I believe that, maybe not belief, but I would consider myself a follower of Christ, and I don't see the Bible as infallible, but I think that it is a book packed full of information that is 100% useful, and if you can learn to kind of dissect it and understand it properly, I think that it has a lot of messages that are very, very beneficial for humans.
So what about the messages that are definitely not very beneficial for humans? Because it has a lot of those too. So like how should we then pick through this, and how should the layman, the average everyday person, decide which parts they should believe and follow, and which parts have been corrupted through history, and which parts shouldn't have ever been there in the first place, and like how should an average person deal with this book?
So I think that if someone's looking to be a Christian, and their ultimate goal is to follow Jesus, starting with the Gospels, I'd probably say Mark is Mark or Luke. Those are going to be your best bets, and doing a bit of work on trying to understand the anthropological, historical context to those accounts and the communities that they were being written to. And then kind of you can work through the New Testament. But in terms of the Old Testament, I would say find a good scholar that if you have those questions and if you want to explore that stuff, you can kind of look at their work. I don't think it would be fair to ask every single person who wants to be a Christian to, go through 6 years of academic study. And,
right. But like that's kind of what I'm getting at is do you really think it's reasonable for, average everyday people to put in this much work to dissect the historical context and the translations and the this and the that of this ancient, this Iron Age, sex manual? Or do you think that it's better that maybe we just kind of do away with that and focus on things that like the morality of our culture today is not derived from the Bible. It's derived from logic and reason and argumentation and the blending of cultures. So, like, why not just encourage people to be good people and participate in the society that they're in and adopt universal principles of morality rather than saying, here's this book, and you should explore this book because it'll make you a better person. Just don't read these parts. And when you do read these parts, remember these certain things. And when you get to this section, you need to go find a Bible scholar, and he's going to tell you what to do with it. Like, don't you think it's a little easier just to, do away with this outdated technology?
So I think if someone's not interested in a spiritual component to their life, and they're simply looking for a simple like moral code to live by, there are some great philosophical viewpoints, even if they even wanted to go a step further than just like, figuring out for themselves. There's some great philosophers from history that have come up with some great ways to live. But I think if you're talking about spirituality, which, having a spiritual component to your life in any form or fashion is very beneficial. Then
reference needed.
I would debate that with you, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail. Please finish what you were saying.
If Jesus is somebody that you want to follow spiritually, then I would say the Bible is still very important.
I mean, I guess I'm a little curious because you're mentioning that I guess if you want to follow Jesus, the Bible probably matters. But it's sort of like saying if you want to follow Jesus, then read about Jesus. Like, okay, great. Why is this better than any other kind of spirituality if you want one? You kind of threw a passing reference into the Quran, but I don't really see why studying the Bible and being a Christian is somehow superior, at least from anything you've said. You've basically said the Bible's useful. A lot of things can be useful. They're not necessarily good things. If I break my ankle, it can be useful because then I start working out and all of my joint muscles become better after that to rehab my ankle. Sucked that I broke my ankle though. So I don't know. I guess I have two questions. One being, why is this superior to any other kind of spirituality? And the other being, you've said this is useful. Why? How is it uniquely useful?
Okay. So, I'll preface this with, I'm still learning.
We all are.
Through my studies, there's a French polymath. His name is René Girard. Have you guys heard of him?
It sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. I'm here on this show. I don't have anything in front of me.
I do love you dropping the word polymath, though. That's a good word.
That's a very good word.
Yeah.
So he in the late 20th century, he was working on this idea that he coined mimetic theory, and out of it he kind of built this theory of religion, which focused on violence of humans in communities, and specifically sacrificial violence, and kind of how that built religion. And he he outlines this idea that when communities are in conflict, the way that they resolve that conflict and unify is creating a scapegoat in the community, and killing them is a way to appease that kind of appease the conflict. And so he went back and he's seeing that this theory or this kind of outline is all across myth and stories of across human history, and that he got to the Bible and specifically the Passion narrative. And in all of the myths leading up to this, it's always either there was two victims that he saw. There was the kind of just the sacrificial victim, one who's convinced that they deserve this, and so they willingly go. Think of like kind of, I'm not 100% sure this is fact, but I'll just use the example because I've heard it. Like how people would line up to be sacrificed in ancient South American communities. And then the other type of victim was the retributive victim, which we see in Judaism, right? Where it's, no, I don't deserve this. And in fact, you guys are the ones that deserve to be sacrificed or to be killed. And they demand justice and retribution. And when we get to Jesus, he breaks that all down when he's on the cross and
so
forgives his enemies.
Is the premise here then that Christianity is uniquely useful because the scapegoat was a perfect person? Is that kind of the idea here?
That he was the forgiving victim.
Okay, but
that he breaks the cycle of violence, but he kind of tears down this.
Sorry to interrupt. You can't really say that Christianity broke a cycle of violence or broke a need for scapegoats and sacrificial victims. It was only in, I believe it was the 1970s with Vatican II that the Catholic Church finally said we don't blame all Jewish people for the crucifixion of Jesus. It kind of feels like if we look at this historically, which I think we should, that he doesn't break down the cycle of violence. He just provides a different kind of justification.
Yeah, I also want to throw out there, like you mentioned that like this is unique because Jesus sacrificed himself. He's not unique in doing that. I just Googled list of gods that sacrificed themselves. And the first one here is in Aztec mythology, Nanahuatzin sacrificed himself. He was the most humble of all gods who sacrificed himself in fire so that the earth would continue to have the sun. And then he became the sun god in doing so. And then here's a Reddit thread that mentions Prometheus, which is one of my favorite literary characters. And right away, Prometheus was crucified and tortured for all eternity because he gave people hope and fire and things like this. And so like it's not a unique doctrine to say, okay, this guy sacrificed himself versus this person was sacrificing, and now here's this person giving himself and he becomes a god in doing so. Like these are, yes, themes of sacrifice do surround religious tradition, sure, but like the Jesus story at face value is not unique at all. And also it's not necessary anymore because we no longer have that mindset that we used to have when we were hunter-gatherers or early civilization. We're like, well, I have to give all this stuff, sacrifice this stuff in order to get the sun to rise tomorrow. Now we can like function in more civilized ways. So like, I don't think that your narrative here about like the uniqueness or the specialness or whatever of this passion model are either useful for society or give any credibility to the religion at all.
I guess also on that, sorry.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Just on the theme of self-sacrifice, moms throughout history have sacrificed quite a bit, even to just reproduce the first time. All of these examples are male, which is, history is what it is. Mm-hmm. But putting it out there, the idea of being self-sacrificial, throw just female existence in there.
Of course. Yeah, of course, and yeah, I'm not claiming that self-sacrifice was the idea of self-sacrifice was created with Jesus' death. Obviously, self-sacrifice has probably been going on since humans, since we transitioned into Homo sapiens. But
not even us. There's other species that do it too.
Or yeah, other species even. I'm sure. Yes, and so I think. It's more specific than just self-sacrifice. I think the context of kind of leading up to Jesus' death, depending on what gospel you read, I guess it varies a bit, but kind of who people saw him as, who he alluded or claimed to be, who. And what he was teaching, all of that taking place in Jewish community and the context of their beliefs, it's much more about the fact that Jesus is breaking down these walls of religious violence that permeate communities all throughout history and still do. Like you said, yes, Christianity is no different. And that's the ironic part, right? Is that when the way, right, became institutionalized into a religion, it did the same thing that religion has done across the world forever. And
so, Tommy, really quickly, we've been going for about 16 minutes now, and we've got a few other callers, so I want to move on. But I do want to ask you very quickly before, just without, I don't think this requires a history context. It's just asking you personally. Over the course of this call, we've mentioned the fact that the Bible is corrupted and fallible and has a whole bunch of bad stuff in it. We've mentioned the fact that Christianity as a whole is corrupted and fallible and has a whole bunch of bad stuff in it. We've mentioned that humans are humans and that we do good and bad things and that no part of this doctrine is unique. I've been trying to press over and over about, like, what is the actual usefulness of this whole thing? And so that's kind of where I'd like to land now at the very end of the call, is just to ask, like, the whole point of society moving forward is that we do away with things that aren't useful anymore, things that are outdated, things that are getting in the way of progress. Even if they have a little bit of good to them, maybe we can save it a little bit of that good. There's not a single thing that a religious person, Christian, Muslim, whatever, can do or can say that is good that an atheist also couldn't do or say that's good. But I can give you a laundry list of things that religious people have done and would do that are evil that an atheist would never do for these reasons. So, like, at the end of the call, I just want to know, like, again, why do we need this? Why is this useful? If it isn't true, then shouldn't it be done away with? And if you think it is true, if you think that the story of Jesus is a real thing, still, why do we need this particular doctrine, this particular structure, this particular way of life, this particular religion? Why is this thing right here the actual only way to do it?
So I would say that the example that Jesus sets in the Gospels and the teachings that he gives us of forgiving our enemies, or loving our enemies, and forgiveness and compassion, and not having these imaginary borders between people, that we're all brothers and sisters and we're all children of the Father. That idea is something I think is very profound, and I think it's something that's missing from the world, especially right now.
But isn't there a way to teach those kind of information, those kind of ideals, without the baggage of Christianity? Like, Sofia and I are good people, I like to think.
Yeah, well.
We work pretty hard to make the world a better place.
Sorry.
I can speak from myself. I dedicate my entire career to trying to make the world a little bit less shitty than it was when I got here. Donate a lot to charity, raise a lot of money, try to help people where I can, give a sandwich to a homeless guy. And I don't believe in any of this. So can't we all adopt those ideals without the additional baggage of Christianity. Isn't that possible or useful? I mean, flip, dude. Santa Claus teaches all the same things that you just taught. Be good, be kind. We're all brothers and sisters.
Of course it is, and you know, I think there are a lot of people in this world that are a lot more Christian than a lot of Christians are. I think that if someone, like I said towards the beginning of the call, if someone's not interested in a spiritual component to their life, and really they're not looking to kind of tie this into maybe some bigger picture that only be really subjective and in their own head, that I would still say, sure, an atheist living by the principles of forgiveness and compassion and not making enemies and self-sacrifice will be awesome.
I feel like we're kind of going around in circles here because we're like, why is it unique to this? Why not drop all of the other things that come with what has become this, what we all agree is a corrupt religion, and just live this way? And you're like, yeah, but then also spirituality. And we're like, you can get spirituality from somewhere else. And then we kind of keep going into this. We're having the same conversation sort of over and over.
Yeah.
I would really encourage you. I used to be, I'm hitting stuff. I used to be very religious. I ran a Bible study at my school. I was like, I thought I was going to be a missionary, all this stuff, right? And for me, it was really helpful in these sorts of discussions to write my premise out first and test that. I feel like you have a lot of sort of premises here, things you can say, okay, the Bible is a uniquely good way to accomplish these goals. Test that theory. That's something you can do, like Google, or like I just called you Google, like Forrest just did, with the Google box.
I'll take that as a compliment.
All right. Yes, Mr. Google here. It's something that you can kind of do on your own. And not to say that we wouldn't want to talk to you again, because absolutely we would. I feel like you're on this really interesting intellectual journey. I feel like you're really smart. And I do want to know where this goes for you. But I also feel like some of this, I think you can push your own thinking here. And I'm excited to see where that would lead you if you just start testing your own ideas a little bit.
Definitely.
Okay, yeah. And I appreciate you guys talking.
Hey, thanks so much, Tom.
Yeah,
we
thanks for
appreciate
calling.
You. Have an awesome rest of your day, man. Take care.
So before we go on, we have the top 5 patrons announcement, which, yay, patrons! I might say all of these things, all of your names terribly wrong.
You should do it on purpose.
All right, why not? So we have, let's see, our number 1 top patron is, this one's so easy to say, but I'm going to try to do it wrong. Dingleberry Jackson, which I believe is Dingleberry Jackson. This one I might just say wrong on accident. Ayame, anime.
You are a what?
I get it. I'm so slow on puns. It's like my super weakness. If I were a superhero, my weakness would be not getting puns. It would be terrible. Number 3, we have oops, all singularity, which I didn't say wrong because it's too funny on its own. Number 4 is Davor Valjean. I was going to say, my brain went to Jean Valjean from Les Miserables. So, you know what kind of a nerd I am. And then our 5th top patron of this week is Helveti.
Cool name.
There we go. It's very cool. It also makes me think of Helvetica, the font. So I'm just word associating now. And an honorable mention to Torsen Oh So Fluffy Phil, but Phil spelled strangely, and I'm not sure if it's a typo or if your name is actually Peel. So I'm hoping it's Phil, because otherwise that's really unfortunate.
Thanks, Fluffy Peehole.
Yeah.
We appreciate you being here. Thanks for your support.
Thank you for supporting the Patreon.
Make sure to check out the newest episode of the flagship show of the ACA, The Nonprofits, which will air at 3 p.m. Central Time today at tiny.cc/YTNP. The ACA also wants you to know what's going on in our community, and we've got you updated on a cool website. Head over to atheist-community.org, where you can learn all about the organization itself, our policies, and how you can get involved, because I know you want to.
Obviously.
We also want to hear from you. We're dying to know what you think. So if you want to tell us what you liked, what you thought was effective, what you think we could do better, any comments, questions, concerns, feedback, you can just email us at tv@atheist-community.org and let us know. We're always interested in what you guys think. We are a community organization, and you are part of the community. So write in to tv@atheist-community.org and get involved. We've got like 25 minutes left. I think we can squeeze in like maybe 2 more callers if we try.
Let's do it. Let's squeeze, Forrest.
I'm all into it. We've got Alex, pronouns he, him, from Michigan, wants to talk about the start of the universe. Alex, you're on Talk Heathen. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Awesome. So what I've got here on the call screen is a little bit confusing to me, and I want to make sure I'm understanding it right. So will you please tell me a little bit about what you're calling about?
This is a thing I've been thinking about for the past few weeks, and it's always difficult to explain. But if everything is cause and effect, if everything is affected by some other cause, there really is only one cause, being whatever start of the universe this is.
Right.
So the question really is, do we have free will, or is everything just a reaction to the thing that happened before it?
This is an ongoing debate with all sorts of people, and I'm definitely in the camp that we have a lot less free will than we think we do, and that's simply because you can trace any action, whatever I do in any moment, you can trace it back to what neurons were firing at that moment to cause that. Okay, well, what were my blood sugar levels like for the past hour that would have kind of brought that? What kind of mood have I been in for the past 6 hours that brought me up to that kind of decision? What has my week been like? Have I been really stressed at work or something like that? How has the last 5 years of my life gone? And what kind of mindset am I in right now? What's my emotional and intellectual journey going to be like? How was I raised as a child? What principles were I taught? How were my parents raised? What culture did we come from 5,000 years ago that led to the kind of ideals that we have today? All the way back to the evolution of Homo erectus, and I'm like, what stone tool was made that made me make this decision today? So like, in terms of that, I'm definitely on the significantly reduced free will camp. I've yet to really sit down and really hash out whether I'm a full-on proponent of like zero free will whatsoever. However, I will say that people that I respect intellectually and are way smarter than I'll ever be are on both sides of the aisle on this issue, and I've heard them both speak about it. So, like, it's a good question. I don't have a great answer for you, but it's a good question, and people should think about it.
I also have a bad answer. I've been thinking about this actually a good amount recently. Have you read Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, or familiar with him at all?
No, not at all.
So he was a Holocaust survivor he was a psychologist, neurologist, philosopher, and I'm not just conflating those two things. He's actually both. So he was talking about the idea of free will being fundamentally not a very useful one, because we feel like we have it. We are affected by all of those things that Forrest just mentioned. But what he points out was that in his experience surviving Nazi death camps, you can argue against free will, as Freud did, saying that if you were to starve people en masse, then they would all behave the same way. What Viktor Frankl points out is that that is not true, that everything that you are becomes more exaggerated in those situations. And so maybe you're going to see honorable people behave honorably in extreme situations, and they were predestined to do that, or they didn't have the free will to choose. Maybe you'll see people be horrible and evil, but ultimately you don't know how any given person will respond to stimulus, no matter how much information you have. So the way that I look at the question of free will, and this is probably a terribly unsatisfying answer, is that I feel like I have it. So that's all I can really work with, because ultimately I don't think we can answer that question. And I find more value in philosophy here for myself. Oh my gosh, I need to stop hitting that microphone. Than I do in maybe strict science and what's provable, because here nothing really is.
Yeah, I like that. I'm kind of on the same vein where like I know that the decisions that I make and the way that I navigate my way through my life is completely determined by like the experiences that I have, like the tools in my tool belt. What experiences have I had? What philosophies and ideologies have I been exposed to? What things have I studied in order to give me the arsenal that I need to attack the world around me, literally, to deal with the problems that I'm exposed to every day. And the more experiences that I have, and the more that I learn, and the more that I'm exposed to new ideas, and the more that I debate and talk and think, the more tools I have in my tool belt in that way. And so, like, I can kind of reason my way into a free will argument there where it's like, yeah, I'm making the choice to learn the things to allow me to make better choices. And that's still, you still have the deterministic side of that I'm only able to make the choices that I've been exposed to, but also I'm taking control of that. But then a determinist would also come along and say, yeah, but like, what happened to you to learn that, to then know to make that kind of decision, to now give you the so-called choices that you're making? So, like, it's one of those things where, like, you kind of get stuck in a logic loop.
Who bullied you in third grade, and what did they smell like?
Exactly.
And are you responding to the smell in this situation?
And that's why you chose tapioca pudding today.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's so specific.
So yeah, this is something, as I said at the beginning, like, there are way smarter people than I will ever be on both sides of this issue.
I disagree. I'm the smartest person, but I still don't know what.
It's just, yeah. So like, I appreciate you bringing it up, but I don't think either one of us are going to be able to give you a satisfactory answer at this moment.
What's your answer right now?
Yeah, what are you feeling?
I don't think any of us have free will,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that on a universal, on such a vast scale, that things actually happen, giant rocks smashing into each other and suns exploding, that our concept of even doing anything, we make choices that in millions of years will be irrelevant upon like the most irrelevant you can get. So really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we don't have free will, because no one cares.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting into my territory now, because I'm a big fan of cosmic nihilism, and like, yeah, at the end of the day, if the entire Earth was destroyed this moment, nothing changes on Andromeda. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? So like, it's I'm the same way in that vein. I just take a different like moral arm on the end of that. I encourage you to check out, there's a really cool neurobiologist who I shout out all the time because he's one of my favorite authors. He's a guy named Robert Sapolsky. He's a neurobiologist at Stanford, and he doesn't have any social media presence, but he writes some great books, and he's done a ton of cool interviews. And I saw him on a podcast a little while ago with another Stanford neuroscientist, and he was talking about this exact thing. And he said, when you really, really, really take this to its extreme, because he believes we have no free will at all. He's on that camp. And he was saying, when you really, really take this to its logical extreme and you really think about it from a neuroscience perspective, you come to the conclusion that really you can never fault anybody or praise anybody for anything. Humans are completely blameless in everything forever. And like, he's like, when I really meditate and try to focus on it, I can have a few seconds where I really just am completely at peace with everybody forever. And that's wild. But like, even he says you can't keep that up, even though he's a proponent of this. So it's an interesting thing to think about, man. It's really, really cool. Anyway, if you had anything else you wanted to add, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, we're going to jump on to the next call so we can try to squeeze somebody else in.
Right, we might have.
I think he already hung up. I think he's already gone.
Alex.
He's done with us. Well, thank you for calling in, Alex. It was a really thought-provoking conversation. We hope people out there play with this and have some fun with it. We've got, oh, hey, look at that, the super chats. Yeah, you know what?
So I just poked Forrest on camera. I don't know. I was like, there's a thing.
Greg's
look at the
over here
thing.
reminding me to do super chats. And you know what's funny, Greg? Literally the last two calls, I've had the super chats open, and I'm like, I got to remember to do this. And then I get so distracted by hanging up the call that I don't. I am
He could have just blamed me
this is
because
my
I'm
whole
new.
job. I do this for a living, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, we got all sorts of super chats, all sorts of people writing in things that they want us to say, and I'm ignoring them. We got James Call, who's been a channel member for a year, sending in $10. Nice to meet you, Sofia. Thank you so much. Very kind of you for writing. That's so sweet. If crabs are prevalent, if crabs are so prevalent and eating shellfish is a sin, does the devil evolve crabs? That's the only explanation. Mm-hmm. That's the only explanation. One more reason to love him. We got Joma 1977 AA. I'm sure there's some context there, but Joma numbers sent in $4.99 to say, Happy Sunday! Keep on doing the good work of influencing the world to be more educated and be better critical thinkers. Thank you very much. We appreciate you sending that in. Mark Fernkopf sent in $5. I've said that wrong. Sent in $5 to say Forrest. Henry, 4 years old, wants to know why eyeballs are squishy. So the long and short of it is that your eyeball is full of goo. It's full of fluid. And that's because the very back of the inside of your eyeball has what we call photosensitive cells. It's this tissue called your retina. And that's how you're able to see things. This tissue back here absorbs the light. And so if your eyeballs were hard, then the light wouldn't be able to pass through there effectively. They need to be able to squish and move around a little bit to make sure light gets through there. And you have all sorts of really cool parts in the front of your eye, the colorful part that you can see. This is called your iris. And you've got this like lensy thing in the front called a cornea, and you have like a little magnifying glass right behind that that's actually just called a lens, and you have these little muscles that squeeze and stretch that to move the light around, but the light has to pass through the goo to get to the part of your eye that can actually see stuff. So that's why your eyeballs are squishy. It's just to make sure that you can see things effectively through the goo. You always have to go through the goo.
I hope I'm not the only person who just wants to poke my eyeballs now.
I want to do it.
They're so
all the
squishy.
time.
It's exciting.
Yo, I got LASIK a little while ago.
Oh, I've heard that's like quite a mind-blowing
It's
experience.
so freaking cool, dude, because they slice your cornea off a little bit, and then they do some laser, they reshape the structure of the front of your eye. They basically carve your eyeball into a contact.
Well, now we know Forrest's idea of a good time.
Yo, I'm not even joking. If I could do it again, I would. It was a ton of fun because they flop your cornea off and the whole world's all grainy and it looks all crazy because you get different. It was so much fun, bro. Learning about the eyeball as it's being dissected.
There's a lot of diversity in the atheist community. Some people like having their eyebrows gouged out for fun. Some people are normal like me.
Yo,
so,
you know what? I would make a comment, but honestly, biologists, we are not normal. We're not normal. Got a million stories about that. We've got $11 from Zachary Martin. Oh, I'm going to say this so weird. Oi, Forrest, ya hummy, ya. I heard you being awesome and smart, and I gotta say, that's something worth noticing. You may be a puny humie, but you got the brains. It's atheist crumping time. Well,
what is crumping?
Zachary
is it
Martin,
the dance?
I'm married, but I appreciate the offer. That's very kind of you. That's woof. We got $2 from Emery King. Dre was a receptive caller. I hope he calls back. I hope so as well. Joshua Billinghurst, aka Flynn, sends in $3 to say thanks, guys. Thank you, Flynn. I miss so many super chats, y'all. DM MXN $25 from Greetings from Mexico. I love Forrest's smile. I never stop doing it. Dre W sends in $2. Zachary Martin's what is this? What? Oh, okay. Zachary Martin's is a Warhammer reference. Someone just sent me and let me know that was going. Okay, so
I'm not cool enough to play Warhammer.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I played Age of Sigmar on the Oculus, and it was a nightmare of a game. It was awful, and I've never been into it since.
I did steal my brother's Warhammer figures when I was a kid, and I got mad at him, so that's as much as I know about Warhammer.
I mean, you know that people are emotionally attached enough to it to harm them by taking their figurines away.
I know, and you're saying we're good people. I'm like...
it's us evil atheists eating babies and stealing Warhammer figurines.
Nom nom.
Okay, so we got a bunch of other people here, and I think I'm going to go with Steven. Pronouns he, him in Arizona, lives in a very conservative area and wants some advice. Steven, you're on Talk Heathen. How you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. I'm really, really great. So it says here you live in a conservative area and you're looking for advice. What exactly are you looking for?
Well, I live in a I'll say a pseudo-conservative area. As an atheist, you're always surrounded. And I actually live in a very Mormon neighborhood, and my Mormon neighbors are lovely. But, when I go to work, it's a very ethnically and religiously diverse community, including atheists. I've actually performed atheist weddings. And everywhere that I've ever lived, there's been a lot of diversity. And I'm about to move to a crazy place because that is where my partner wants to live.
Yeah.
I'm moving from Arizona to Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And in advance of going there, I looked up some demographics and some politics, and it's like 98% Republican, 99% white, which means any person of color is probably the only one in town and will know who they are. I am LGBT. My partner is straight and emerging out of the Catholic experience, but we're getting married. So I'm explaining to him that it's going to make him LGBT by association by marrying me.
Right.
So I'm wondering what it's going to be like to go into. Forrest, I know that you're from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Or at least you live there. Sophia, you're lovely. I don't know where you're from.
Aw, thanks.
But it's this. I've never lived somewhere this monolithic, this conservative, this much of a place where I know I'm going to be very alone. And that isn't to say that I won't find other atheists eventually and so forth. I'm sure that's going to happen. But going into it, I feel like I have to be very quiet and somewhat defensive. And I just wondered if you could give me some advice if I'm approaching this the right way, or what I can expect, because this is going to be bananas. I've never lived somewhere this rural. I've never lived somewhere this conservative, or this white for that matter, which is going to be hard to get used to, which may sound strange.
No, it doesn't.
But I'm used to people of color being around me, and there won't be, we're all going to be the same color.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually, in my new property, we're going to have something they call a crick, which I think around what they were actually saying. So, it's that kind of a thing. And it's not that I'm not still excited to go and this new chapter of my life, and it's all going to be wonderful. But there's this other part of it where I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
So I wonder what your thoughts were and if you had any advice for me.
Buy gun.
I mean,
honestly,
all right. Well, we're going to sidestep Forrest.
All jokes aside, now I live in Oklahoma. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There are and always have been double-digit churches within walking distance of my house. We have very tiny racial diversity in our town. I grew up in a town just outside of Tulsa called Broken Arrow. My P.O. box is still out there. That was actually started as a white flight town. And so, I totally get where you're coming from, dude. I understand it, and it does absolutely suck. There's different camps. There's different lines of thinking. My wife is very cautious to make sure we don't have anything in our yard, that we don't put bumper stickers in the car or anything like that, because people will follow us home where we're from if they don't like what you have to say. Because they have the majority and they feel comfortable and empowered in doing so. I'm an idiot, and I love to go out in the street corner with signs and scream at people and yell from a megaphone about my ideas, and so literally. And so I'm all about getting the death threats. I don't mind one bit. So it really is just how much does the community matter to you? Do you want to fit in? Do you want to have a community experience? Or do you not mind being a homebody by way of ostracization? Because it can happen. In any case, I would always just recommend, if I had my way in the world, and I understand this is difficult and dangerous and scary, and so no shame if you don't do this, I would always say, be aggressively and unapologetically yourself all the time. And if people don't like it, they can fuck right off. And if that will get you in trouble, it absolutely will. But I would rather be that way myself than any way else. And I say that with all the confidence of a cisgendered, mostly heterosexual white man.
I think that, I mean, as a fellow white person, there is some level of speaking from that perspective as well. I was way more okay with the idea of death threats until I had a kid, and now I'm like, it's a little more risky. But I think the first thing that I would really want to say is you don't owe anybody anything. You do not owe them being the token LGBTQ person. You don't owe them listening to a bullshit idea if they're going to be offensive and disgusting. Just to reaffirm that, because there's going to be people who try to make you feel like you do. The school of just asking questions, or you can't even talk anymore. Throw that shit out. You don't know that. You don't need to spend the time on that. And it's totally okay to be like, hey, I'm just not interested in having this conversation with you. it's going to offend people, but just know your boundaries and also know that they can change day to day. That it's okay if you're like, yeah, today we can have this conversation. And then other days just be like, I can't take that load on, you know? And I currently, this is not exactly the same, but I moved from Seattle to Texas and then became an atheist in Texas. So good planning there, right? And I now go to a Christian university. And so I didn't tell people for a while that I was an atheist. I already have enough that sort of makes me stick out a little there until eventually I couched it in the sense that I am nervous about how people will respond to this. There are things that if I have an obligation, I'll say, hey, I have an obligation. I won't tell them it's for the atheist community. But I will say stuff like, you know, here are things I've heard from Christians before. Here are things I've heard said or had said to me or that I find really offensive. I'll open it that way. Instead of just doing, we're going to have a freewheeling conversation, I'll actually be like, yeah, here's my emotional state here. And it's not from nothing. Like, there are reasons that I think it's valid for me to be nervous and for me to feel defensive. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't really help with a lot of you're going to encounter so many microaggressions. The other thing I think you're probably going to encounter that I just put to you to like maybe think about how you're going to handle this. If you are part of the majority, then there are going to be people who say shit to you that you don't want to co-sign, right? That are going to say racist shit or whatever it might be. And I think just putting some thought into how you're going to, shut that down or move on, or for your safety, I would never say like, do something that would make you feel unsafe. But, I get a lot of mileage about saying, I don't agree with that. And just, it's sort of a moderate tone and you're not making an argument, but you're just like, I'm not going to co-sign that one. Varying levels of intensity for sure. But yeah, I don't think that there's one size fits all advice, but I think protect yourself and know that you deserve that. I think that's where I would start.
Yeah, I would just parrot what Sofia just said, because I am also an antagonistic little shit. And when I am in Oklahoma, lots and lots of people around me like to fly the loser flag, the Confederate flag, and they there's this whole it's heritage, not hate. Not heritage of being a fucking loser, right? Cool, whatever. But like this is a very popular symbol, and because they live in this majority, they've rarely, if ever, experienced any pushback on that. And so for you to just kind of be even just a gentle little bit, is like, oh, that sucks. Oh, wow. I like the winning side personally. I like the side that didn't want the slaves. You know what I mean? That's just me. I actually like America, so I don't root for the traitors that committed terrorist attacks on American soldiers. I don't like that. I'm kind of patriotic that way. That little bit of pushback, it's often quite jarring for these people, because they've never ever had to deal with that before. And so if you are like us and you are instigative and provocative and enjoy causing some trouble, these are great ways to do it with a smile on your face. Might not be for everybody though.
Yeah, I've always been, my partner being Catholic and everything, I've actually been very impressed with because I haven't been pushing him, and he's deconverting, and he's sort of generalized Christian right now after being very devout. But his parents are like Fox News watchers. So we have conversations about what all of this is going to mean. And he did say to me very recently, he's like, it's very white here. I'm like, well, okay, I don't know what that means. And he's like, well, there's like one person of color and they live 3 doors down, and I know they're the only one or the only family. And it's like, holy crap. I've lived in cities and I've lived in other places, but I console myself because of the region. It's Pennsylvania Dutch country. So there's going to be a lot of handmade furniture and stuff like that.
A lot of scrapple.
And yes, but you can kind of, the easy thing about that, because Pennsylvania Dutch or some of the other, I don't know how to refer to them as a group, but you all know what I mean. They don't know how to dress and they wear, bland colors, and are very into woodworking and farming, but you can kind of look at them as being other and separate. that it doesn't feel like they're as influential, and they're not. But it's, when you walk away from that and you see people who are dressed more normally, you start to feel a little safer and to realize I'm not necessarily going to be, I think is what I'm wrestling with.
Yeah.
I hear everything you're saying. It is tricky. I will have the more militant, aggressive conversation, and I like to just be myself. So if I'm going to wear something that says, "Hi, I'm celebrating Pride," you can like it or not. And, and I'm old. I don't have to put up with too much at this point in my life, or at least that's how I feel about it. So it's just navigating it. I've just never lived anywhere like this. So I'm just wondering what it will be like. And you guys are from parts of the country that reflect that better. So thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
Hey, no worries. And don't be, I don't think you are, but don't let us make you too cynical either. There's good people everywhere. And I think people will surprise you.
I think the thing I would also point out there. Sorry. I don't want to interrupt anybody.
The Mormons here really surprised me. Yeah, the Mormons here really surprised me. They protect me as an LGBT person. They protect me as a Democrat. They watch my house when I go on vacation. They're really nice, and I'm actually going to miss this sort of 1950s kind of neighborhood that I'm in because of that. So it's, I'm trying to tell myself there'll be people like this there. And I'm sorry, Sofia, please go ahead.
No, absolutely. I think the thing that I would throw out there is that you might end up becoming this guardian angel protector type for folks who live in that community. If you're wearing a Pride shirt, they're always looking. The number of people who will secretly, come up and tell me things at the school that I go to, be like, "Oh, I'm not religious either." They don't want to say it, but they will take the cover that you provide. And that's really amazing too. But remember to take vacations, give yourself a break, because that is insane to stay in that position for too long.
Oh, yeah. We're already planning, Mediterranean cruises and things to get away every so often. So, yeah, there's stuff. But, well, again, thank you very much. I know we're coming up to the end here. So thank you very much. I appreciate you taking my call. And for your advice.
Hey, thank
You're
you,
lovely.
Stephen. You're awesome. Take care.
You too.
Well, I don't think we had a single seriously negative call
I
today.
know. I'm like,
really
is it?
show.
Everyone's so friendly.
We're going to get the worst views of any show on this one. There's nothing controversial or confrontation.
I mean, I'm adorable, so I bet it'll be fine.
Fuck you, Stephen. Working in there somehow. So, really quick, just a reminder, the prompt for this week is, what did the caller say to make secular rarity look like this? I'm going to hold it. There he is. Reply in the comments and tune in at the beginning of next week's show to hear the top 3 answers. Really quickly, before we wrap everything up, Sofia, where can people find more stuff about you?
They can't right now.
Oh, flip.
I'm sorry.
Her premiere is here.
You just have to keep watch. You have to watch this.
Okay. Well, really quickly then, I'll ask you a different question. I've been trying to catch a glimpse of your forearm tattoo for a minute. I thought it was a cross. Is that
I have
Narsil?
2 different ones. This is. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Yes, this is the Shard of Narsil.
Awesome.
Which is the sword that is reformed for Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. And then the other one is a pencil, and they're done in matching ways. They will be filled in, so they'll be bright and colorful. They're brand new. I was a wimp about it. I was told by one of the tattoo artists that I was being annoying.
That's confidence building. That's good.
I know, but I'm like, all right, well.
That's so cool. That's great. I thought it was a cross. I'm like, oh my god,
it was Narsil.
She's got something in her past that she's trying to get over now, and that's got to be hard to live with that. But like, no, that's just dope as shit. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. It is my goal to be dope as shit.
Really quick recap for anybody who missed it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to do those things. If you'd like to become a channel member, you can do that with the join button down below. Support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTH. We have a channel that houses all the shows of the ACA and audio podcast forum. That's at tiny.cc/AEN podcast. You can become a part of the Talk Heathen community and a fan run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG. If you would like to continue the discussion after the show, you can join us on ACD, the Ace Community Discord, fan-run Discord server at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. Also, make sure to check out the newest version of the ACA show, The Nonprofits, will air live at 3 p.m. Central today at tiny.cc/YTNP. Shout out to the crew. Put them up there as well. Throw out the crew cam. Look at that guy.
There's a kitty.
That cat works so hard. He's exhausted. And also, can we give another shout out to the audience? Can we show them as well because they're fantastic, and I love having them here. Bring the audience up on the screen. Oh, no, they don't want to anymore. There they are! Loud in the audience! Out there. Also, because this is Talk Heathen, they do something that we don't do on like any of the shows, and that's love rings. Have you seen the love rings recently? I'm shocked by it every time it happens. No. It's less weird than it sounds.
Okay.
Do this. Do this.
What is this?
Ready? Now go like this. Go bam.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. See? It's literally magic.
I feel dumb that I didn't know that was going to happen, but
I
also
didn't either the last time I was down here, and I watched this show.
It's very Powerpuff Girls is what I get.
It's
like,
very
ha.
Cool. Thank you so much to our viewers. Thank you so much to our production crew. Thank you so much to our call screeners and our moderators. Thank you so much to the audience. Thank you so much to you for tuning into this show. I'm Forrest Valkai. This is Sofia. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an awesome day and never stop learning. And don't forget, we as atheists don't hate you.
We're just not convinced. In your ears.
Yeah. I believe that now. Close to you, don't
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live, Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.